And we're live. How you doing? Welcome to Vibe Chat. Remember to guard your privacy. But I like that. We did a show last night, for almost 2 hours, and we had about 5 people, but no one said anything, and I couldn't tell. There's no one there, but I get a thumbs up. Well, thank you, AI. That word, right? Uh, un unctuous, right? That means slimy, right? Let's see. We'll look that up. It's like a sycophant. Hey, gang. Welcome. Good day. Good morning. Good evening. That's okay. Dragon. Good to see you, buddy. I'm glad everything's working. The chat's working. I'm working. You can hear me. Little dots are moving. And things, I know, seem weirder than they ever have been. But what seems to be through my research is that it's the same as it ever was. You know, I remember in 1968, I was 18, right? And was graduated from high school, and I was being with my Maine girlfriend, right up in Maine, and North Bridgeton, and her father kind of ran the whole town. And I hitchhiked up there just, when I was 14, when I was 13, before I went up to this prep school. I had to go to summer school at this super duper elite summer school on Long Lake in North Bridgeton, right? And there's a super duper elitist prep school up there that I went to summer school at Long Lake Lodge. And the town, the Ryersons, the gas station, the post office, the general store, you name it, they ran it. And they had 3 daughters. And Mr. Ryerson had gone, and he owned the ice house, and his family had been there doing that for generations. And he went off to World War II, and he flew a bomber out of England, and he met an Irish lass who was from Scotland, who was English, right? Irish, Scottish, English lass, Betty, and he brought her back to America, married her, and they had 3 daughters, as gorgeous as Betty, right? And there was the oldest, the middle, and the youngest. And when I got there, and the only thing you could do was kind of play around at the lodge. You could go out on a rowboat or a sailboat, and you could walk around because it was out in the middle of nowhere. You could, play tennis at a tennis court. And anyway, or you could just walk, half a mile into town and go into the general store, and they had a soda fountain, and you could have a cheeseburger or and you could put it on account, and they would charge it back to the camp. So, because one of the main things that kept that whole little town going was that prep school, and so the first one I ran into was the oldest daughter, and I fell in love with her, and she thought I was cute. She was 20 something, and she was just graduating nursing school, and she was going off to Boston, but she was spending a few weeks up at, with her parents and family, and she was working at the store, and nothing happened. She was 23, I was 13. Then she left, and the middle daughter took that job over, and she was a wild child, and you know, she would, later in years she would be known as a punk, but she was just loved music, played electric guitar. She had an amplifier and an electric guitar there, and just would go nuts. There'd be no one in there, and she'd be wailing away, and 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 she was, this is 13. I was, you know, it was 1963 ish, and 63, 64. And that's when I went off to high school, and I had to go to this prep school to, get myself ready to go to this, super duper high school, which was a joke. Anyway, so 1963, it wasn't quite punk times or even super rock and roll. Jimi Hendrix and those guys, Grateful that hadn't quite hit the scene yet. It was still like 1950s up there, and she was playing Buddy Holly, and she was really good. And her parents were really great. They didn't like come. They were just who they were. They were still in love, and they were running their business and their family, and they just took care of their girls and pretty much let them do whatever the heck they wanted to do, as long as I just kept them. But they could let them do whatever they want. So the oldest was up to be a nurse and have a good time in Boston, and then find herself a rich husband. That was her thing. The middle one was rocker, just rocked out, and was at some point gonna go become a rock girl, right? And and in reality, years later, she was with Joan and the Jets, right? And I bumped into her in New York, especially. And so the last one, the youngest, was my age, right? And she was a little bit older, right? She was, I was 13. She was probably 15, and so the first one went off, and the second one, I don't know where she went off, but she stopped playing the guitar at the store, and I think she got a job in Portland or whatever the big town in Maine is. And she went to visit her aunt and got a job there. And then the young one took over, and we fell in love. Just, oh man, did we fall in love? And it was so cute because we didn't even kiss. We just held hands. And she was a super athlete. Amazing, she was an Olympian skier, and she was, really like on the top three in Maine, at you know 15. And she was a downhill racer. I mean, she's the one who they go really fast, right? And she loved to ski, and she played tennis, and she loved to play baseball, but there was no baseball, so we played, threw the ball with each other a lot. And she was a great hitter. She would hit it out, and I would try to get it and fall over or miss it, and she'd always laugh. And she just thought I was the cutest little thing. And I what she really didn't like was, so she these three girls grew up in a town that was, a male prep school, 300 guys who were always hitting. The only girls that were there were these three girls. So they got to know what boys were about pretty early on, and their mom definitely gave them the 411, and the father, he had this big baseball bat, you know, club over the soda fountain, and so that was, and he was also, the marshal of that neck of the woods. So you don't fool around with those girls. But we were just so sweet. So the mom and the pop were like, "Oh, isn't that sweet?" And they, talked to me. At first I started out with the oldest daughter in 23, the next one who was like almost 18, and then their 15-year-old daughter. And they realized it was like Goldilocks. This boy is just right for her, right? And so that's all those other guys were like, "Oh, I'm so cool." Me, I was just, "Hi, how you doing?" And I was still my peanut size. I was a little taller than I was, up until the eighth grade. I started growing, and anyway, and I was, into reading and stories and science, and looking at the wonder in life. And boy, I just wondered about her. So it was a sweet time, and those times. Anyway, I'm saying that things seem really weird now, right? So there I was out in the middle of North, Bridgeton, Maine, on the long lake, playing tennis, croquet, and um, what you call it, sailing. She was a really good sailor, and we'd sail all over long lake. And her mom would pack us a picnic lunch, and there were little islands, and we would take the sailboat out there, put out the blanket, have and sometimes we would. There was this one island that had a great little fire pit, and she had made it and gathered wood and covered it up and had everything to make a fire. She's actually the one who taught me how to make campfires. And we would stay out there. And the camp that I was at, they didn't, as long as I went to class, it was okay. Mr. Ryerson, he ran everything, so he was the prep school. Okay, so we had just the sweetest time, to have my first love. But it was so that was that, and the next year, I mean, I was sent off to seminary to be rocket scientist for the Pope, and everything was corrupt. I mean, half the priests were pedophiles, and no one seemed to care. And I was just, didn't really realize. I mean, I worked in the theater, at a young age. By 9, I was in New York City. I knew loads of theater people, loads of gay people, loads of every kind of people in the West Village, and it was, everybody was, as long as they were a human being and nice to each other, that's all that mattered. And everyone had self-respect. No one stepped. I never got, you know, I got attention, but not like someone's trying to, get in my pants. And so I never felt fear about gay people or any of that kind of, or sex or anything. Just it wasn't even in my radar. I was into electricity and energy and science and the mystic world, and I had all these mentors around me. Make well, he's going to be a great this or a great that. And that was it. I kind of ignored by my family because I had my own life, and so I had this sense of self awareness, self confidence, and self understanding. And I trusted everyone. And I was extraordinarily innocent, naive, right? So, but I had all these people around me kind of protecting me. So then I went up to seminary, and it was like a slime. This is supposed, I had, loved Jesus, I had read the Bible, I had, hung out with those Maryknoll priests who were like the greatest humanitarian humanists you could ever imagine, right? But I kept seeing the frayed threads of the illusion, and all of my mentors would kind of say, "Well, see that? So now you have to realize that what you think isn't really what is. Don't believe in anything. Nothing is real." So I got that from an early age. I got that from my grandma when I was like 2. And we'd go to the museums in New York and go up and down Fifth Avenue, up through the park. Park was like the further north you went, the different the people were. The more the east side, north, more worker class. Around 63rd Street, 20 blocks either way. From Central Park West over to Third Avenue. That's where the rich people were. And so I remember 1968. So freshman year, I was 14, 15. I got, they nearly killed me in that year. So then I was going to another prep school, super duper authoritarian kind of, for the uber rich. I mean, really rich. I went to school. My roommate was Joe Kennedy, right? Robert Kennedy's middle son, who was a moron congressman. And Perry Dye, his parents owned Seagram's. Um, Alex Orb, U.S. Steel, Eddie Merrill, Ricky Lynch of Merrill and Lynch. I mean, those guys, my friends, basically destroyed the economy of the world. So I went to school with, UB Hobart, Hobart, you know, meat slicing, equipment, metal, electric tools kind of place. And you name it, top 1%. That's who I went to school with, right? And I got in there because I got thrown out of a Catholic school, and my bishop, my cardinal godfather, got me into this one, you know. And he said, "I'll be safe there without them," because we were right on the border of New Hampshire and Massachusetts, and Mount Washington was like right there, and we had snow like you couldn't believe. And we didn't have a gym, so we used to have to walk 4 miles down into town, which is Winchington, Toy Town. That's what it was called, Toy Town. They made toys there back in the day. And when I went to school there, it was like a dead town, which most of that neck of the woods was. That was a very industrial area because they had water and transportation. And then, after once the 20th century started, that area died. And only the rich kind of stayed up there. So, anyway, and we were like between the border and Athol, right? And Winchington. And so my sophomore year, and we were up there. We started school the end of September, almost October, right? And we were there. We didn't go home. I mean, we were up there, and we went to school 7 days a week. 8 hours Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Saturday, yeah, and Saturday was a little shorter, maybe 6 hours. And Sunday too. We had 2 hours of school Sunday. Sunday was the only day we kind of had some free time, and we had a little free time here and there. But I mean, it was all about keeping us busy and occupied. And these kids were really rich, so their parents just want to ship them away. But when they came back, so we started in September, and we went home Thanksgiving. A day or two before Thanksgiving, and we didn't come back until the 10th of January, right? And then we stayed in school from the 10th of January to May 1st. And like I said, so we had more hours in school than any other school system, but it was like condensed. And so, and we lived in these houses with our teachers, and it was a very, when I went to school there, the whole school was only 160 boys, right? And my sophomore year was an amazing year because all the guys who were, so my sophomore year was 1966, I guess, and the Vietnam War was heating up. And all my teachers were young guys who had gone to places like, Brown and, Wesleyan and, good schools, not Harvard and Yale and, not those kind of schools, but good schools, right? And they were upper middle class kind of people, like I was. I wasn't rich like these other kids, but I was upper middle class. And my all of these guys got this job because it gave them, um, you know, an out of having to go to Vietnam. As long as they were teaching high school or prep school like this, they got a deferment, right? And they all were pretty good athletes, and that was one reason they got hired. They were all became coaches of like hockey and swimming and lacrosse and football and soccer and tennis and golf and each of those teams and wrestling. We had all of that stuff. We only had 160 kids in the school. Hey, Janie, Esoteric is here in the house, and yeah, I'm looking good. And so are you, and so is Esoteric. You're looking good also. And so I'm trying to tell folk that things aren't as weird. I mean, they've always been weird, right? So I'm telling this little story of my high school days. And I went to school with the richest people in the world. Like I remember Robert Kennedy came to visit our school and they landed in a helicopter. It's difficult to find any work now unless you know somebody. That's exactly, but it's another thing. Esoteric, it's always been that way. I mean, in the 50 years that I did work, was only through people I knew. My electric work, it was, I went from one customer to the next, to the next, to the next. Also, my mentor was like the first master electrician in the United States. I mean, it was always about people I knew. When I became a scholar, the same thing. I did these projects and I went from one project to the next. Would be great to get community of like-minded folks together, grow our own food, and out here in the deep green. My site is all, I got a garden. It's all, it can easily sustain 20 people, right? It's got water and electricity and septic and not two big college towns within 40 miles of this place, right? And, other work too, you know. And there is but, the thing like, in, whatchamacallit, Boone, North Carolina. That's kind of hipster. It's a college that's all about um, being a hipster and being it's because there's skiing there and there's hiking and biking and being in your little canoe, lots of rivers, and that's why those kids go. It's an okay college, but it's not at all that interesting. I mean, I walked around and talked to all the people who run the place, and they just want the status quo. They just like you know, they make between some, college professor there, an adjunct makes about 17 grand a year. A professor makes about 24. A, guy who's got tenure, he's probably making between 30 and 70, right? And that's all they do. The people who are tenured are clawing to get a tenured position, and it's all sycophants, right? It's all this word, right? Um, so the word in our title here, is unctuous, you know, and I'm going to say to my questionable little device here, what is unctuous? Unctuous? UNCTO.
Here's the definition of unctuous. Of a
Unctuous.
person excessively or ingratiatingly flattering, oily.
Did you get that? Unctuous. That's the times we live in. Unctuous, right? Ingenuous, flattering, only seem to oily. I like that. These oily people. Look at everyone on cable television. Everyone on CNN, everyone on Fox, everyone on MSNBC. They're all unctuous. There's a great little YouTube channel called it's by Rolling Stone. You know, uh, Interesting idiots, I think. And those two, it's a guy and a girl, and they're they write for Rolling Stone, and they're smart and they're quick and they comment on everything. They do a podcast, and so they use that word today, unctuous. Uh, just like the old times. Yep, these times. So I was telling this story of my first love and being in Maine, and I'm sitting on the floor, 1968, because my sophomore year, I did pretty well. I didn't get kicked out. And I had a long summer vacation, and I really didn't want to hang out, you know. I was in this deeper kind of thing, and all my friends from the public school, like my parents, my mother, constant to the day she died, they sent me to a seminary to be a Catholic priest. And my mother, and I said, "Why did you send me?" "Oh, you wanted to go." I said, "What?" "Oh, yes, you always said you wanted to be a priest." You got to be kidding. No, I didn't even think about that, right? Now, my godfather, the Cardinal Cushing, yeah, he wanted me to be a priest. In Catholic families, there's always one son who's going to be the priest. And, I got it. I didn't want it, and I was naive. I was in my own private Idaho. I had no idea that people had this plan for me. And then when I nearly burned the place down because it was so corrupt, they sent me up to this other prep school. So my sophomore year, I got back, from being my first year in this prep school, and I did pretty good. And like I said, didn't get kicked out, didn't burn it. I almost burned the headmaster's house down, though. That was interesting. Not my fault. I didn't do it. But, the five of us who were living there, because we were being, housed in the headmaster's house was like being in solitary. We were the worst of the worst. The five of us were all guys who got thrown out of other prep schools, and pretty much everybody in that school got thrown out of some prep school. And there was this one guy from Miami, and his father was a lawyer for gangsters, and he knew the Kennedys really well. And there was another guy who he was, his parents came from a well-to-do, um, you know, chemical family, and this guy was, he was born with a test tube in his hand, so he was a guy who nearly, set the place on fire. And we were fooling around making stuff that blew up. And we should have been fooling around with that stuff outside, but we were doing it in a room, him and me, boom, and we tried to put it out with our clothes, and this stuff was so active. We tried to put a sheet on it, it would burst into flame. A shirt burst into flame, and luckily, it was all on one place, like a chair. All the fire kind of exploded and landed on the chair and burst the chair into flames. And basically, when we couldn't put it out, I threw um, a table through the window and knocked the whole thing out. My adrenaline was going, and knocked the whole, not just the glass, but the everything out, right? And just left a hole. And we picked up the burning chair and threw it out into the snow. And it finally went out. But if it had stayed in that room, it would have burned that house. And the whole house was full of smoke. And we all went downstairs to watch TV, and we got engrossed in watching Star Trek. And then the headmaster and his wife came home, and the place was, she screams, "Ah!" You know, well, that was like 2 hours ago, and we were watching Star Trek, and they came back, and ooh, were they pissed? Because I went upstairs and there was no window, and there was a snow drift in the room. I just have this tendency to. Do you ever see that? It's on television now. This commercial about this guy who's chaos. And it's for an insurance company. Well, I was kind of like that. A little sweeter than that guy, but he's not so bad. Really, must thank you guys. You give Jamie the opportunity to love no matter what. We haven't even shaken hands. Yeah, that's the cadre. I felt it lift off my shoulders. Wow. Um, thanks, Jamie. Yep. Uh, but you need to unblock my. Jamie, how do I do that? It's a pain. I don't even. Like last night, I did something, I had no idea what I did, and it stopped the chat from chatting. I think, Jamie, the only way, um, I need one of you guys to come visit me and get my digital world into order. But so, Jamie, what is blocked? Because I do have one guy in one of the college towns who's kind of my guru. He fixed, when I push the wrong button and I lock my laptop up, or do the same thing with my cell phone, he'll undo it for me. So what do I need to look to unblock? What channel, or what do I need to do? And I'll try and do it, because I love you, Jamie. I love you all. You're the cadre. That's why I love you guys. Do 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 do. Boo, 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 boo. Hear me. Got a signal again. Okay. So I am totally. That's why I want to I want some folks to come and visit. I am in a number of places, in Johnson City, in Boone, and in Roanoke. There are three groups of people who are artists and interesting, and they want to change the world. But for years, like in Roanoke, I know everybody there. I've organized. I've tried to get, and I can't get people to work together. You know, they have the most common of interests. They should be able to work together. I would have potluck dinners and parties and things, and they would come and have a good time. And because they all get stuck in their, you know, what they think, you know, and that's right now. Look at the Democratic Party. Here Bernie is. He's obviously. I mean, he won the Democratic um, thing to run against Donald Trump back in 16. But the DNC, played with the insides and took it away from them. And Julian Assange, WikiLeaks, you know, un, un you know, unleashed the all the emails about it, but see, Bernie's part of it too because he could have like raised holy hell, but he didn't. So he didn't change the Democratic Party. You know, After that, he could have. He's a socialist Democrat. Well, he could have freaking started the Socialist Democratic Party. You know, and you watch all these. Bernie's winning everything. Look at Iowa. I mean, can you believe? I mean, that it just shows. And that Buttigieg guy, he is like the Stepford Wives. He's if you really go to Jimmy Dore. You guys watch Jimmy Dore? Jimmy Dore is a bomb, right? And so he loves the only real person in the Democratic crew of 10 is Tavi Gabbard. Now, she has her issues, she has her points of view that some people might not like, but she is the most honest, forthright. I mean, she's a person who's still in the military, and she didn't, Buttigieg, he was in the Navy as an intelligence officer. That tells you something right there. Perhaps I'll come see you and do myself in April. Okay, April's good. Anytime past April for because it can still snow here in April, but it's been an unbelievably mild. This is the most mild winter, and this is the first winter I've lived in the woods. Most times when I had money, I would just go to my little place. I had a beautiful beach bungalow down in the Florida Keys that was in I can't even explain. It's what do they call it? It's like upstate New York used to have these like places where the tourists would go in the summertime. Well, there's a similar kind of thing that had been kind of a cannery, and in the '60s, this architect came and bought it and built a beautiful hotel, but kept all the buildings around, bungalows and stuff. And it had a great place where people could bring in their big boats, and they had a tiki bar and a Cubano restaurant, and it was a bomb. And I just happened to stumble into that place when I had some money, and they were running short, and so they sold me one of their little bungalows, timeshare, right on the water, and it was for a good 10 years. Every winter, I would go down there, I would check in with my parents, hang with them, and then when they were jerks, I would zip down to my little bungalow down in the Keys, and when I wasn't there, I let the hotel rent my little bungalow. So the hotel and I would split it. And so that was a very good investment. I spent about $8,000, and then I got it back when I sold it back to him. And, but this was the first winter I've stayed here, and it's been unbelievably mild. So I've spent a lot of time here, spring, summer, and fall, but not winters because they can be seriously lots of snow and really cold. It's difficult to find any work. Looking good. Name stake. Namaste. Contrail. Jamie Hilliard, buddy. I think you guys, yeah, give me an opportunity to love no matter what? Because that's, we serve love's co-creation here. Jane, thanks, Jamie. Let's see, yes, but thanks. You need to fix, okay? I'll try my best. Uh, well, boy, yep. Got a signal again. That's the only way. Here. It's blocked. Let's see. Jamie Hillier Rubik. Okay. I'll see what I can do about that. Not promising anything, but I'll go ask my guru, my computer guru. So tomorrow's Friday, and it's supposed to be a sunny day, so I'm going to go out. Right, it rained pretty hard last night and during the day, and let's see. Uh, uh, so I'll check into that, Jamie. Let's see. Esoteric Dre up here in Canada. It's been very mild. Yep. It's good to be liberated. Glad the weight has gone now. Good. I'm glad the weight is lifted. And remember, gang, go back and look at the past shows. Go look like last night we did a guided meditation. I stand is still some more obstacles. There's always obstacles. That's what life's about. Living in this bag of water is all about the obstacles, you know? And that with every obstacle gives us the opportunity to grow, you know? Uh, I still have more obstacles to get over, but shall pass. Yep. Johnson City, Boone. Yep, that's the place. In Roanoke. Is Boone named after Daniel Boone? Who knows? Probably, could be, maybe. Um, Mild in Ontario. Yep. That's the West Coast, right, Janie? So technically, yes. Surprisingly. Okay. Hey, we got snow here in the hills of Tipperary. Yes. I miss Canada. So Tipperary, you're talking about Ireland? Is that Tipperary? Ireland is so strange because it just is like stuck out there. The west coast of Ireland is like living in Mexico. The Gulf of Mexico comes and keeps that water. Like the Ring of Kerry is like, I went swimming in the Ring of Kerry once in January, and the water was like 70. Now we can, I was also, living on the west coast, and a snowstorm hit us. It's, yep. I mean, it's you guys can, but the world is no more stranger than it ever has been. The only thing that's a little different is that we have these things. And this is the flagship of fascism right here. Because this is surveillance uh, capitalism, right? And so everything we do here, it goes up into somebody's server, and they remember it. And as soon as I come on, bingo, there is somebody watching. And then you guys kind of saunter in to the bar. But that thing is AI. AI is right on it every time. And AI is either going to eat our lunch or be our savior, one or the other, right? And the thing about AI, it's the ghost in the machine, meaning they've already lost any control of what they think AI can be. All these morons of all these mystery schools and all these, the hidden hand and the powers that shouldn't be and the pinheads and the sock puppets. Please. But that has been humanity, forever. And see, the thing is, we're taught that, Our civilization's only been around 3,000, 4,000, maybe 6,000 years. Forget it. We've been here a billion friggin' years. That's what Atlantis, our, we, if you've ever climbed a mountain, I remember climbing one of the taller mountains in America. And my teacher, Grandfather David, sent me up this hill. Um, and he did this a number of times. But it was a beautiful day. It was nice, and we took a nice long walk through a mesa, and we came up to. Have you ever guys seen any pictures of Monument Valley? We kind of went through there, and he had me climb. He was like Yoda, and I was like Luke, and he would have me do things normally I would not even try and do. But he said, "Go do it." Don't don't question, do. So I mean, he's the guy who taught me that one just to do. I was already pretty confident about fixing anything. Grandpa's stall, I could tackle a 100,000 volt transformer while it was still alive, no problem. But other things that I had, like riding a horse. I never rode a horse, but grandfather, David, you know, and he sent me up to his grandson's Mesa Ranch where they broke horses, and there was this really nasty, crazy, wacko horse that no one would even get close to. And Grandpa, you know, David sent me there and said, "Listen, they're going to teach you how to ride horses, and there's some pretty frisky horses, and I know my grandsons are probably going to stick you on the worst horse. So go eye to eye with the horse. Get close to the horse. Be respectful of the horse. Be non-threatening to the horse. Be loving to the horse. Have a carrot in your pocket. Have split up an apple or two and a sugar cube. See what the horse likes. Become its friend. And horses are like big dogs. So are cows. Horses are like smart big dogs. Cows are like slow big dogs. And so I got to know both really well. I already kind of knew milk cows. When I was at the seminary, I milked cows as a punishment. I'd have to get up at 3 in the morning. And that's why I wired the bells of that school to go off at 3 in the morning. If I had to get up at 3 in the morning to go milk the cows and muck out the barn and feed everybody, and then go into the kitchen and cook breakfast, and then serve, and then, be a altar boy, and then go to school, well, everyone else was going to have to get up at 3 in the morning. So, and that was like the school bells were like my alarm clock, and I couldn't figure it out. You know, there was an off-site input to the bell system that wasn't in any place that they could find, and it was run by a car battery. And as long as that car battery, it didn't take any juice to run the bells because it just sent a signal that tripped it off to ring. So that car battery just ran the little clock and the little signal to trip off the whole system. And it was buried in the ground. And once it snowed, never found it. Right. And so that battery lasted almost a month and a half. So a month and a half every day, the whole school and all the, every building, the bells would go off because that school was a school run by bells, right? Bells to wake up, bells to take a shower, bells, you got 5 minutes to get to breakfast, bells for breakfast, eat breakfast, bells after breakfast, bells, it's just like Pavlov's dog. So I set it off. If I had to get up at 3, everyone else had to get up at 3. So I got to know cows pretty well there, and goats. They had goats too, and I learned how to make cheese. And so, I mean, yes, it was pretty tough. They tried to kill me a couple of times, and yet, I really only have good memories. I had really good friends there. The few priests and all the people who worked there were really great people, and that's when I found out not everyone sucks. Right? Everyone has a bad day, so that's why you got to cut everyone slack. But not everyone sucks. As I'm glad I have my passport now. It makes it much better for. Yep, 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 yep. In Cambridge, Ontario. So what's Cambridge like? Esoteric? Big town, small town, college town? You know, not taking my phone. Okay, LOL. They're always watching, always. Yeah, they're always watching. I don't care, I'm not scared. And, someone said, you don't have any fear about anything. No, I've died 6 times. I'm a pretty sick guy. I don't own anything. I don't have anything. What can be taken from me? They got to kill me, it'll be okay. I've died enough. I know what's on the other side. It's not a big deal. As Plato said, it's like slipping out of a tight slipper. And as long as I keep doing what I was sent here to do, it'll be fine. Because what I do, like this program I do, I do it for you guys, but I do it for me. And what I'm getting out of this is that it's making me be sharper. When I worked in the corporate world, for the desperate lawyers, I made a lot of money. I mean, ridiculous amounts of money. And I worked 11 weeks a year and came close to having a six-figure salary. That's 11 weeks, right? Now, if I worked all year long, I'd have, a seven-figure salary, but I didn't. I just worked six, right? And led a very hedonistic life for 10 years, right? And owned a lot of stuff and buildings and houses and real estate and investments. And I wasn't a zillionaire because I only worked 11 weeks. The rest I traveled and had a good time and did fun things, And I had two dogs that keep me company. And I had the big school. I had my house down in the Caribbean, and my place in the deep green. I had a couple other things too, here, there, and everywhere. And I basically saw that '08 was coming. And so in '06, I kind of liquidated everything and put things in a kind of, you know, where I wouldn't lose a lot, but I lost, maybe 30% of my net worth in '08. And then '08 happened. And so all the stuff I did for the corporate world kind of got cut in half. I went from having 10 to 15 gigs a year to having three, right? And then I got sick and I couldn't make any money. And you know, first, was, oh, what am I going to do? And went through the medical model and they nearly killed me and tried, took a lot of, they took half of my net worth just in that short period of time. And then I realized I had to heal myself. And, especially when I died in that plate of spaghetti because I got sick and I could have like got myself out of it, but I didn't because I really started to get sick in 2012 and I died in a plate of spaghetti in 2014. So um, I could have, if I had stopped being Mr. Hedonist, I could have, you know. But that was something I had to go through myself. We all, everything we go through is something we have to go through. The real secret of it is to learn from, so Dragon, you're saying you have obstacles. From every obstacle, if you learn something, then it's worthwhile. Then it's of value. But if you do the same thing over and over and over and over again, that's what Freud called insanity. And the canary in the coal mine is a perfect example. I've known that guy now going on. He bought the place in 2015. Now I've helped him, quit smoking and quit doing this and quit doing that. Now I haven't been with him for 15 months. I have seen him all of 26 hours in 15 months. He's begged for me to come visit him 4 times. Every time I did, he threw me out within, the last time he threw me out in 3 hours. Right. So now and he's been begging me to come be, go, could just, drive here now. It's like, well, it's I'm 200 miles away. It cost me about $100 to come visit you. Either way, why does it cost that much? Well, gas and this and that, and living out in the woods, I don't spend any money. I can live pretty comfortably on $74 a month. And I mean, not really, because I have other expenses, but that's about what I, you know, spend on food, you know, and then there's gas and my cell phone and this and that and the other thing. So that eats up the other, $380. So I live on about, $489 or something like that, very comfortably, and very, and I have a lot of. I've lived here in the Deep Green for about 20 years, so I know a lot of people. So and I've helped a lot of people. So everyone knows who I am and kind of, you know, has gotten comfortable with my character, and so and I don't, this is, make America great again kind of folk, And I have my hat. You've seen it, my red hat, and everyone kind of chuckles. And anybody wants to have a good conversation, they sit down. I don't believe anything, so I don't argue. I listen 90% of the conversation, and then tell them a story. I say, try to help out at the homeless shelter, but you can't help those who don't want to. Yeah, help themselves. Exactly true. It's sad, but it's still, I have compassion, even the ones who rob me. Well, the thing is, if you have nothing to get robbed, you can't get robbed, you know. And if you give things away, like your time and your compassion and your feelings, then you can't feel jacked, And and pretty much, I would say 90% of the human race has been programmed to be, not wanting to change. People who believe in religions and political structures and why things are so out of whack is because of that. But we've been out of that whack, you know, since Babylon, really. The Tower, not Babylon, the Tower of Babel. Because before the Tower of Babel, we are basically, where'd we come from? You Since hell, Bob, where did we come from? Well, where we came from is that we are the product of the Nephilim's little slave genetic experiment. We're manufactured. Now, our soul isn't manufactured, but this little body here, this little bag of water, this Homo sapien sapien, is a genetic experiment, right? And they hijacked our pranic, photonic soul to, they couldn't, animate this. So they kind of grabbed that energy flow and stuck us in this prison body here, right? And that happened about 1 billion years ago, and civilizations like Atlantis, they weren't the aliens, they were Homo sapiens sapiens, but they had a certain height of abilities, technologically, spiritually, all the above. And the folks who build the Tower of Babel were a whole nother civilization that has been kind of lost in the mist. Before them, they were that movie Forbidden Planet, the Krell, but they were kind of like the Krell. They were super duper highly evolved technologically. I mean, their technology would look like magic to us, right? And they had built technology like the replicator or the 3D printer, but super duper. I mean, all they had to do was think of something, bingo, it would go into existence. And so they were building a technology above that. So the folks who are the demigods, because the whole structure of this is, it's a hierarchy, right? And so Lucifer is part of that hierarchy, and there are people above him and below him, and that's, paranormal stuff and dimensional stuff. That's all what this is, it's a hierarchy. So these cats were threatening the top level of that hierarchy, right? And I love co-creation. Let's go, let's all of this, why there can't be a God if the world sucks so bad and all that little baby died. Well, that little baby's going to have about 1,000 different reincarnations. So you better learn something on that time round, And that's, reincarnation makes sense. And virtually every religion teaches reincarnation. It's just a Holy Roman Empire because they wanted to own your soul. Well, they couldn't own your soul if you kept getting reincarnated. Jesus Christ even taught reincarnation. Now, I'm going to have a lot of people going on whoever, stuck in a religion might get upset with all this, what I'm saying. But remember, don't believe a word I say. This is just your Sensei Alba. I'm telling you a story, right? So that's where we're at with this one, let's see. So, whatever goes on in your life, you just have to learn from the experience. That's why you're here, to learn from the experience so you can ascend your consciousness and not be stuck in a mud puppet, right? You don't want to be a mud puppet. Mud puppet is, oh, how am I going to pay my bills? Oh, I'm so, oh, the only important thing is my family, and I have to be, but I'm not going to go there. It's so hard. That's a mud puppet. Not that you can't be empathetic for the mud puppet or care about the mud puppet, but again, Jamie, you said it yourself. If you're not ready, willing to change, not going to change. And the thing is, one of the best ways to learn how to change is to accept whatever, not accept, but what's the right word? To process whatever challenge or hardship may come your way. Look at it and find the avenue that you can learn from, that you can ascend, that you can go, wow, okay, right on. Yep, okay, I got this. Well, I'm glad that happened. Like, I worked in a hospital for people who had dementia, Alzheimer's, and were old, let's say, taking care of old folk home. And a lot of, if they live long enough, they're dying of cancer, right? And they had shrinks there, but they were like, working. So they had practices, and they would just come. But I was there all the time. I lived there, right? And I was more like the janitor, right? So, I was my job was to work with people who had Alzheimer's and dementia, but those people like looked at like garbage. So, um, one doctor used to call me the janitor, right? And I embraced that, right? So, and I had a bunch of degrees, and I had, had done a lot of it. How I got that job, it was again, just like Dragon said, I had finished up with a project, and somebody of high stature said, hey, I have a friend of mine who runs this hospital, and he could use you. So I talked to him about it, and he wants to talk to you, and we're going to go out to dinner. And so we went out to dinner. The guy hired me right then and there. So, you doing anything now? You going to work for him anymore? And I go, nope, I'm done with him. And I went and worked for him for about 6 months. And what happened to me was I did too good of a job. And I started, the people with dementia and stuff, people who were, and basically I got all the people who were the trouble, people who were like, this little old lady who is like 90 years old. When things would twitch in her head, you know, football players couldn't stop her. I mean, I saw her, they chained her to like a lazy boy, and I saw her flip over backwards and take it and throw it at these guys, and she flew with it, and she was behind it. She threw it over her head at these big burly guys who were like trying to lock her into this chair, and broke them. They had to go to the hospital, this little woman. And the only thing they were trying to stop her to do is stop her from masturbating. She'd masturbate all the time. All I did one day, I said, Sylvia, here, can I put a blanket over you? And I had this really sweet, very soft kind of um, linen, silky, woolly, warm kind of blanket. And she was always kind of cold. And I put it over her so you couldn't watch her masturbating. And she goes, oh, thank you. She used to call me Bob because that was her son's name. She said, I love you, Bob. You're my best son. And that's kind of where I got Sensei Bob from. Giving you my etymology. So the bottom line is all these people had real issues, real problems, and all I didn't do psychotherapy. That's that works for some things, but all I got them to do, and the best part of psychotherapy is you get the person to talk. I just would get everybody to talk, and I would give them a little, story that they could think about. They tell me their problem. I tell them a story. They would, hmm, right? Let's see. Much to learn from all the angels. Good to research, to study, everything. Yep, exactly. I thirst for knowledge, immeasurable. Yep, you're on the right path there, Dragon. Janie, cleaning toilets is the high calling. Yep, I'm a planner for my sins. That's a good one. I like that. Stable, I hope. Dragon, Baba has always been a touchstone. And Baba is, you know. All the great masters, right? They have one thing in common, this unbelievable loving heart, right? That, it's like this you're standing next to a warm, radiator, right? And the love just emanates out. And if you open up to it, and that's why these great teachers are great to, and they don't even have to be incarnate, you know. Baba, Baba is, passed, but he's still here. Jesus passed, but he's still here. Um, who's the guy who wrote the autobiography of a Sufi or whatever that book was? That guy was is still here. You know, in the '60s, I had a girlfriend. Her name was Hallie, and her father was English, and her father was an astronomer and was in India looking at Halley's comet, right? And so she grew up there. The first 8 years of her life was in India, and her father was an astronomer and taught at the big, wherever, Delhi or whatever. But there were all these great masters who this guy was friends with. So in the '60s, when it became popular for these Indian um, Sufi master dudes to come and people, and wanted to be, get a little thing on their forehead and get their secret password to their consciousness. These guys would come, and she had in the West Village this tiny little rent controlled apartment, that was teeny tiny, but it was beautiful because it was off an alley. It was between McDougal and Sixth Avenue, between Houston and oh, I always forgot the name of that, but where all the rock and roll places were and kind of cut diagonally from east to west. And and it was right on a little alley. It was right near the McDonald's, right near where the guys would play basketball for money, right off of Sixth Avenue. And it was like Harry Potter. You went down this alley, and then you went through another alley that there were these little apartment buildings, like made for hobbits, and Hallie was, she was, 5'3". I got to know her because she was best friends with Kluber, Olga Kluber, right? And she was 80, and it was like Harold and Maude. How old was I? Maybe 19 to 22 when we were a thing. And, she was not, whenever I was around, I would stay at her place and we'd be a thing. But, I wasn't like her boyfriend. But, she was, pushing somewhere between 70 and 90. But she looked great. I'll show you a picture of her when I dig one up. And whenever we were in our thing moment, she looked like she was 15 to 20, right? What, and she could, shape shift her whole existence. She was, in the same level in a mystic spirituality as the old crone. And so that was pretty good having, and she was, I don't know how many times we found ourselves into, because she loved to tweak people's things, and we would be in a place where she would back us into a corner, and then she would go, these aren't the droids you're looking for, and we would walk out of the place without, dying. And she did that I don't know how many times. Or we'd walk into. I remember one time we went into where the Waldorf Astoria is, and there's a bar there. That's a really nice bar, and she used to love to go there and tell me stories about all the great artists and masters that would she would they would drink there. So anyway, we would tilt a cocktail. Plus, she smoked boo anywhere, anytime, on the subway, in a restaurant, in a police. She could get away with anything. And it's pretty cool to have a girlfriend who can do that, who can either look 110 or the hottest, 25-year-old. You know, it was pretty amazing. And and she really was sweet on me. She was sweet on me till the day she died. And that was another sad thing. It was me and her and Madame Olga Kluver, who was way older than she was. I don't know why Hallie died, but she just, kind of, it was like a candle that slowly went out. So, and Madame Kluver told me that she basically got tired of living in this low frequency and wanted to ascend, you know. So that's why you're here. That's why you're the cadre, because you're here to want to ascend. And that's why what's going on is just a challenge. It's not the end of time, so it's terrible. Well, things are, the powers that be are being very, the powers that shouldn't be in the hidden hand. This is their last shot. They've had the last 20,000 years, 25,000 years of this, Piscean age. And now we're 100% in the Aquarian age. We just have the residue of the Piscean age, and they don't want to lose control. So they're trying everything they can to keep the illusion of the matrix, and it's dying. It's fizzling. I mean, I don't know how many times they tried to kill the majority of and they're at it again. This virus is obviously manufactured, um, and if and they've done this, SARS, MERS, all Ebola, they AIDS. These are all manufactured, and they haven't killed us. And I don't know how many times launching of all the nuclear missiles almost happened. Cuba was only one. There were hundreds of other times when the guy leaned on the button, when the defunct radar said that the Russian missiles were coming, and everything that is in our military is built by costs the most, but built by the creepiest, lowest bid, right? So, and we're still here. I'm amazed. That's why I'm doing this. I mean, one of the reasons why I spent 10 years at hedonism was because I expected any second for us to go. So it didn't matter that I weighed 400 pounds. Didn't matter that it was killing this body. I was just having a good time. I was. And what was truly interesting was in that 10 years, I had 5 women. I was so self motivated in my hedonism. Those 5 women were opportunities for me to put on the brakes, clean my act up, and be with them. I didn't do it. Only one really wanted to go that way. The other 4 realized, oh wow, this guy is so cool. He's so fun. He's not putting any kind of control or demands or nothing. We're just having a great he is living every second of that I'm with him 100% for me, and I'm having a great. This is the most. He's teaching me so much. So those 4 women, that's why they were with me, and I've showed pictures of them, and told you stories about them, and you know, and we'd be out, and people would, because I was not like I wasn't driving around a Rolls Royce or having big diamonds or wearing super nice clothes. I was wearing the kind of clothes you see me in now, right? So, and they all had good jobs. 3 of them were lawyers. I met those 3 of the 4 of the 5. Um, Working, in my legal things, and they were so, they were so upset, and they were the smartest person in those lawyer office. They weren't even getting close to being a partner, and they were doing all the work. They were the smartest. They were making a pretty good salary, but they weren't getting anything. Uh, so and the guys were scared. They're really pretty, really attractive, really confident, really smart, really the best person in their office at their job, and and every those three lawyers, each of them was given to me, by the boss. There I'm like parachuting in with my dogs to fix this thing, you know, negotiate this contract, and I have maybe 2 weeks at best to do this, right? Now he's been trying. His whole facility has been trying to get this to happen for the last 6 months. They haven't changed a lick, and he's put in maybe $1 million worth of time, right? But because he's been put there by a judge and he's the ombudsman, if he can't make them, sign on the dotted line, he's not going to make anything. If he can get him to sign on the dotted line, he's going to make 10 to $20 million. So that's why he took it. So he's rolling the dice, and that's why he would the word out amongst the guys who did this. That this is really crazy guy who can. He's always been able to get him to sign. He's never not come through. He's very strange. You may be put off by him, but he'll only be around for 2 weeks or a week or 6 days or a day. You can put up with anything if you can get him these pinheads to sign the contract. So I would show up, meet the head guy. We'd walk in. I'd have two dogs, not on leashes. They'd be on either side, and we kind of would. And they were pretty dog. They were like 50-pound dogs, not really big, not really small, but. And we would walk in like we were listening to Moby, and we had our nines in our belts, right, and we'd be sauntering in, and you could always tell where the boss was. So I would go right by the person at the front desk, right past all the other, secretaries and stuff in the pool, past the hallway where the lawyers were, and the boss usually was at the end of that hallway with a big glass thing so you could see everything. And I wouldn't ask anything. I would just walk in, sir, you can't go in. I just walk in, go straight. And the guy knew that this really weird guy was going to show up at such and such a time, and so he'd be watching this, and he's got two dogs. And, that's what I said. So I'll be wearing a Hawaiian shirt, and I got two dogs. I'll probably have flip flops and wear shorts, and I'm a pretty big guy. So the boss would be expecting me. He'd see me come through the front door, and I'd be walking straight down the hallway, and everyone, sir, you can't go up there. I just walk right back, and he would have it all set up. I say, I want all the information, right? And I want a laptop with it all on it so I can look at it quickly. And I want an office that has good IT and a number of screens. And I want your best, person assistants. And those three women were not, paralegals. They were lawyers. They were, doing contracts. They were in court. But this project would be so important to them. I would get one of these people, but they were always a woman. And anyway, I would get it, and we'd spend an hour or so, and then he says it's time for lunch, and I said, good. Where's my office? And we take me to an office. I put the two dogs. I said, stay. Right? I said, you got a bowl? Give them a bowl of water. Close the door, and they go to sleep. And he would go and get my assistant, and we go to lunch, and we'd have lunch, and that was the three women, and now I had other assistants, but those three women that I had relationship in those 10 years, and what I really liked, all five of them, I had this kind of relationship, is that I met them each, those five, within the first 4 years of my 10 years of doing this. And we would have, this really interesting kind of relationship for 3 weeks to 2 months. And then I would move on, right? But I would call them up. They would call me up. We'd have a phone conversation. Then I'd come visit them for a week here and there. And it was like, if you've ever seen the play or the movie or read the book, The Affair to Remember, it was like that. So when I was with them, I was with them. I wasn't looking at other girls walking by because they were usually the best looking, best dressed, best, on my arm, right? And we would have the best of times. And when I go see them, they may still be working, but they were not on, you know, full bore. So we can, take a day here or there and go have a long lunch, or you take a day totally off and go to the beach. And most of them were, Georgia, Florida, and those two places was where most of my clients were. And so it didn't matter that I wasn't driving a big fancy car. It didn't matter that I weighed for over 400 pounds. It didn't matter that I looked like a homeless guy with two dogs. These girls really liked me and enjoyed my company, and that's why we were together. And there were no expectations, there were no animations towards any conjuncture of the expected, of the demanded things of what everybody needed to worry about, right? A gradual love affair. Yep. I mean, Mayor Bob is still in my heart. I in the '70s, uh, I had friends who were. There was a big Mayor Baba scene in New York City, and I was a peripheral member. I had my little Mayor Baba medallion, but uh, the energy. What I loved about that crew was that we would have meals together, and it was really beautiful. And there was no hierarchy, and there was no, you know, there are a lot of those spiritual religious scenes that there's a hierarchy and people are, there wasn't none of that. They were all very, very, everybody was sweet because they had Mayor Baba in their heart, you know. Jamie, I think the closest thing that I could imagine what novitiates and Mayor Baba are like the guys who and gals who hung out with Jesus Christ, because that's who Mayor Baba is. Jesus Christ. He's Vishnu. He's Buddha. He's Mayor Baba, right? So, but and when you tell people this, it's hard for a lot of people to understand this. Let's see. Jamie says Mayor Baba is a gradual love affair. Well, he is for me. You'll find his awakening incomprehensible. Yep. But the thing Jamie says he's a gradual. It's this gradual incomprehension that's very interesting to experience. This no form my own experience, but he is not for sale exactly. Whereas the Roman Empire is all about being for sale. Christianity is about being. It's a branding. It's like one of Carrot Pinhead's ties. Yep. And no picnic because when you are in satsang or bliss, you're seeing everything about yourself. So you're seeing all your flaws. You can't become perfect, but it's as Jamie says, it's a gradual baby step thing of getting better and better and better, ascending, right? Criminal picnic. Good to hear. Too many charlatans and false teachers that it can be confusing. Not really. I mean, the word of the day, right? I can't pronounce it, but you know, uh, uh, anyway, the oily character, and that's why they were talking about snake oil salesman. Uh, I will give you that you need. Yep, come with me above. You will get more love than you can imagine. Yep, exactly. My favorite band is Mary Baba 55. So like I say, hey, you should go watch this guy. You should go watch Mayor Baba uh, videos, right? So, Jamie, I just go to YouTube and say I want to watch Mayor Baba, and bingo, it'll appear. Yeah. Uh, Expectations are the breeding ground for resentment. Yep, very good. That's Dragon 100%. So that's why I don't believe in anything, don't have any expectations. When I'm with somebody, I'm with them 100%. And I'm not thinking about what we're going to do tomorrow and 100 days from now or the rest. Oh, I want to, no. In fact, it was clear, forgot Bob. If you love another form of ancient one, focus in on one and the love he shared. Exactly, right? Uh, the bottomless pit of spiritual expectation. Yep, and that's what that is. So I expect nothing, right? I only have faith in love's co creation. That's it. You know, everything else is an illusion, you know. And when I see that love, and that's why, Dragon, it's not that difficult. Because when you see unconditional love, when you see love's co-creation, boy, it's as Jamie explains, it's this amazing, all-encompassing thing. And so everybody else is just a dim bulb compared. And the people who have that love in their heart. The other night, I was telling a story about when I was a camp counselor, you know, in Bear Mountain. Go watch that. That was a fun time. And again, that was a place where it was a cluster frack, and we just, used love's co-creation to make it the most amazing summer I pretty much ever had. And then the problem with so that it was like unbelievable because the camp was designed to have 300 kids there. At the end of the season, we had 1,200 kids, and they were running the camp, and there was only 16 of us, and we were, between I was 16 at the time, and the oldest person, Freddie, was 22. So and these were all real hardened street kids, and we were bourgeois white kids from the suburbs, right, trying to get out of the Vietnam War by doing social things that we could see. I did that, and I did that. I can't kill people, but I'm doing this. Half those guys went off. I did too. When I finally got corralled by my draft board, I went and saw them, and they said, well, we don't think we can trust you with a gun. So, how'd you like to do alternative service? I said, sign me up. So, the first place they sent me off to was Vista, Volunteers in Service to America. And I went down to Mississippi, and I was out in the backwater someplace, and I was running a kids program, and I was teaching them to read. How dare I teach them to read? How dare I get them into literature? How dare I get them interested in music and I mean we were making instruments, flutes, and guitars with coffee cans and fishing twine, and how dare I do that? These kids are supposed to end up in jail, and so I didn't last too long there. So they sent me back to New York, and I ended up working at the VA, and that's how I got into healing. That's how I got my MSW. That's how I, ended up studying with my sensei from Japan, my sensei from China. I studied with a number of and studied at Davenport, Iowa's School for Kinesiology, and became an acupuncturist and orthopedic guy, and I took 3 years. My alternative service was 6 years, and my mentor, the colonel at Fort Hamilton, he sent me to all these guys because he wanted not the usual medical guy. When he came to me, you're going to be my protege, and I wore a cowboy hat and leather jacket and lemon shorts and flip flops and mirrored sunglasses at night and rode a Harley Davidson. And he goes, "You're going to be my protege." And this guy's like 70 years old and colonel and surgeon. I said, "Protege? You got to be kidding me! I'm a freak." And he goes, "That's what I'm looking for." And he sent me to all these people to study, and all of those people, Jamie, knew Mayor Baba, knew all the different great teachers, and each of them, there were a number of those folks who were novitiates of Mayor Baba, and when you were with them, they were like a little sun. Mayor Baba was inside of them, and he was shining and out their eyes. And so, yep, don't believe a word I say. I'm just your griot telling you stories, right? And so, Jamie and Dragon and Jane. So there's a lot of you there. Does anybody else want to jump in on the chat? Last night, I thought the chat was dead. You know, there's no one chatted. There was about 5 people, and you know, we did a guided meditation, and it was kind of, but nobody chatted. I like to chat. It gives me. Yes, I'm in my own little, zone here of, you know, you know, the drift. But the I go back and read out loud what you guys are saying, and it gets me to bring your presence into the drift, right? So that's why it's so good, you know. So remember, get a hold of me personally at the dude awake 42 at Gmail. So Dragon, Jamie, anybody else, who thinks, somehow I technologically forgot you, at least at my Gmail, you'll show up. Now, a lot of people get a hold of me, and unless I'm like really looking at it, I don't, communicate immediately. And sometimes it gets lost in the thing. So if you don't hear, you drop me a line and you don't hear from me, you know, and that's why I would like to be able to get a hold of all my digital threads so I could use them a little better. Because see, like when I was doing my legal thing, not only would I have the best person in that office, I would have that person's legal aid person and their IT person. So every job, I don't know how many laptops and tablets I had because basically every time I would go do a job, these guys would put it either on a laptop or a tablet, so I didn't carry, big suitcases of paperwork. And at the end, part of, the, because part of my gig was I would get a percentage of what they were going to get, and I would be kept at the best hotel in town that had 24/7 room service and had a masseuse and allowed my dogs there and actually had dog masseuses and the dog jacuzzi and the jacuzzi for me and and I would be enjoying and I wouldn't drive. Once I got there, I'd park my car at the hotel and I wouldn't move it, and they would have a car for me all the time, right? And that lifestyle is pretty comfortable. That's how I got to, in 10 years, gain about 270 pounds. So that's what killed me. So I'm not doing that anymore. So, so get a hold of me at the dude awake 42 at Gmail. Go read my stuff. Jamie, I'd love to hear your take on my writing, which you can find at xratted.blogspot.com, right? And it's, under Griot Publishing. But if you want to get, go on to Google and you put in xratted.blogspot.com, bingo, you'll go straight to it. Griot Publishing, it's just the title. And there's, I must have now, I have about 6 novels there and essays and short stories and stuff. So I'd love to get some feedback. I'm a big, and these videos, I wish you guys would make some comments on the bottom, love to have some of your comments, which helps me prepare to do the next show, right? I go back and see what you thought about it. I go back and read the live chat of the last show, and pretty much that's it. So we've been at this hour and almost 30 minutes, and it's 5 o'clock. I'm getting a little hungry. So I think I'm going to, unless anybody has a question or a thread of a conversation you want to go down, I'm gonna say I'm gonna go make dinner, and I'm gonna try and come back on about 8 o'clock, right? So that'll be So you guys want to come back at 8 o'clock? Think about what I said. I'd love to get some more. I don't. Again, I hate calling you guys subscribers. I call you the cadre, the chorus. If you want to, let's see. Let's love everyone. Take care of yourself. Yep. So, Tarek, you got to hold me at, the dude awake 42 at Gmail. Anybody else wants to call, do it. But we all have our tests. I'll be in contact. Okay. Janie, Dreamy Drift. Enjoy. Thank you. Yep, yep, yep. Love you, girl. Uh, so I see you guys around 8 o'clock. Right? I'm gonna go make dinner. I've been making a nice stew. I'm one of those guys, one pot cook. I just keep putting things in it and eat it all day, all week long. It's the economical way. Okay. Okay, gang. I'll talk to you later.